Hi everyone, thank you for coming for this session. So today I'm very happy to host this panel. I'm Jason. I'm a retail transformation strategist, so I help companies to transform, to pivot to new models. So I will let my panelists introduce themselves.
I'm Vykintas. I'm from Zalora. Zalora is in the fashion e-commerce space in Southeast Asia, and I'm looking after operations. So if you ever order on Zalora and there's any problem with the order, you know who to get in touch with. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Shinta from Indonesia, from LUXEHOUZE. LUXEHOUZE is a marketplace for high consideration items, so we sell luxury watches in the tens of thousands USD ticket size. We are present in Singapore, Indonesia. Thank you for having me today.
I'm Marcela Luca. Thanks for having me today. I represent Suyen Corporation, also known in the Philippines as Bench, as being our biggest component, which were also the third largest retailers in the country as well.
Okay, great. So guys, girls, today we are basically looking at what a lot of them are interested in, which is omni-channel revolution, redefining seamless commerce. So basically, I think one thing that this topic, we always have this issue is that when it comes to e-commerce and the physical store, we have two, maybe a person in charge. So the stocks are also very much divided among these two business units. So today, a lot of businesses are also looking at how to reconcile it as a unified commerce so that the stock is no longer a silo component from different BUs. So we would like to hear from you, how do you reconcile the stock into one head count and in a unified commerce platform so that the stocks are easier to be accountable and trackable?
Okay. So Zalora is in e-commerce, right? So we work with a lot of brands in that case. So maybe I'll share a bit of a perspective here from what we see in that case. And I think what we see is that the brands that are successful at that is it starts actually from an organizational structure in that case. So it's you don't treat e-commerce and your, let's say, offline stores as a two different P&Ls. Right? It starts from organizational alignment where it's the same. And from there, basically, your synergies start to flow. So, to the audience, one of the key things that I would, ask to take a look at first is how are you structurally set up? And is that structure allowing you to even go in that direction?
So I'll speak to both the brick and mortar and to the, online on that. And for me, I just want to emphasize that just technology alone does not solve that problem. Obviously, accuracy starts in the warehouse and in the physical store. But as long as both of them are merged, and then you really treat, instead of treating it like inventory, you just treat it as a shared asset. Not even as a company, but as the shared asset of the customer. That's where I think the companies can actually win.
Yeah, as for LUXEHOUZE, we have physical stores, 3 stores in Indonesia and Singapore, as well as our e-commerce, our website. And ghost stock used to be our problem earlier in the day. Why? Because in luxury, actually the good status is not just sold versus available, but it's more like a deal pipeline. It starts with inquiry, then booking, and then down payment, and then fulfillment if it's a pre-order. And then when goods arrive, we need to do quality control as well. After that, the client needs to make final payment and pick up the goods, and there could be final adjustment. So when we start treating our inventory system as such, as a deal pipeline rather than black or white, yes or no, available or no options, we start to solve the problem. Yet, inevitably, failure happens sometimes from time to time, and when that happens, then we'll need to have a good service recovery in place for promotion and to retain the clients. So, yeah.
So essentially, it's all about how do we really gather the stocks together and also make it more transparent to all the business units. Okay, so basically, I think it's also the trend that today we are seeing the retail store is no longer just a retail store for sales, for customer to walk in, but it's also a fulfillment center for them to collect and return items, as well as also like a service hub to impress upon you that this is what the brand is all about, what is the brand story. So the retail store as in its physical format has also changed. So we also would like to hear from our panelists, how have they been coping with this change in their physical store?
I think the most important is obviously the training of the staff, because now it's just not resumed just for them to be like a simple cashier. They have to offer a lot more solutions to the clients. So it's really from the stylist to being able to like manage the inventory, to being able to fulfill the order, to being able to like increase their like units per transaction, of suggesting like other items. That became like a key component, especially so much more in the physical store than in the fulfillment center, because they are the interface, they are the interaction with your client, so they can literally make or like break the transaction in there. So for us, like training has taken like a whole other meaning with other things that we put into place.
Yeah, for luxury context, the salespeople, and we call them client advisors because we require them to build long-term relationship with the clients, with the customers, are like an integral part, very crucial part of the business. So what we do is, just like Marcella mentioned, it starts from hiring. We don't just hire for experience or operations excellence, but also those with high emotional intelligence, because you don't know what to expect when handling like high net worth clients. And training is also a key part. And with training, we don't just train for like product knowledge and also operation system, but also how to become like a brand ambassador of the brand. Because oftentimes customers actually build a relationship with our client advisors first, and then the brand or LUXEHOUZE as a marketplace comes second. So, and our stores have always been a multi-purpose like service node since the beginning, because clients don't just look at goods at the shelf and then do checkout, but they also hear explanation about authenticity, and then they also come for like warranty later, for servicing, for adjusting the straps. So it's become like a conversational hub and also a lounge where they can like stay for as long as they want and trying out like different kind of items. So yeah.
So it's also a very different requirement when you hire your frontline retail assistants and also the officers, because they are also servicing more difficult type of customers, because a lot of time when you return goods, usually you also have to handle the complaints with it.
I mean, from e-commerce part, and I think what we see, right, is that those who enable it and enable it very well, it enables the brands in that case to take all that stock that is offline to actually pull that online, right? And I think it is, from what we see, is that it's very crucial to do it well. And to give you an example is that we have some partners that have, you know, an out of stock or cancellation rate of up to like 5% or even going up to 10% because, you know, the staff is not able to manage that well, or they forgot to update inventory or whatnot, right? And I think that's where on e-commerce we see that also translating it back to the customer, where you are actually losing the sales, right? And that's why it's crucial. It's a very different skill set, as you said, in how to manage it. I think the only other, being in e-commerce, the only other thing that I can think of is that, so one part is, well, it's people. The other part is system and how easy actually you make it for your people to actually manage it, right? If the system is very complicated, then it actually, your onboarding is even harder, right? So that's one other aspect to also think about.
Great. So another interesting thing that we always look at when you run a lot of retail store is how do you really have a single customer view, correct? How many of you are direct retailers? You have your own retail shops? So more of manufacturing lah. Okay, essentially I think in retail environment, especially today, there's a lot of talk about having a single view, single customer view. Because like you have e-commerce, you have a physical store. So if I go into the e-commerce store, I buy something, I go to the physical store, I buy something. I think the brand also want to know that it's the same Jason that is going into these two different venue and two different transactions. They want to learn more about me. So there's a lot of call today is that how do brands have a more unified view of their customers? So maybe Marcella can share how you are doing this.
Sure. So for me, it really comes to one of the things that I'm like really passionate about it, like in my whole entire career, which I feel the luxury brands have already executed this for the past like 20 years, which is really knowing who the person in front of you is and truly like clienteling, right? So now the rest of it, and even like fast fashion, like is kind of catching up with that, try to like identify the person like, you know, needs, wants, so they can know how to actually like serve them better. For us, like what we've actually done is through like loyalty programs. So if you shop online, we can identify you there. Once that you access like your loyalty card, it's in the store. However, it's not as advanced right now because basically all it does is like store the information. And again, it goes back to what I was talking like earlier, really training the staff to really be able to like read what's in front of them and make like other suggestions. So that will make like the next step. So one of the things that I learned from one of my favorite like salesperson that like ever worked for me is that every time like he was in a transaction with the customer, he can care less what the person is going to shop. All he wanted to know who the person in front of them was. And by the end of the transaction or the conversation, they also walked away with a couple of bags. Even for me, like I adapted like that as every time a salesperson came to me and I said, oh, I sold that much, I had one question for them, end. And that end meant, when are they coming back? I don't care that you sold $1 million today. If you don't know enough, if they're coming back today, tomorrow, if they're a shopper forever and never, it means you have not completed your transaction. You actually have no idea who that person is. You just got lucky. When you were just transacting, you weren't really searching that. So with that keeping in mind, it's something that I brought to like Suyen, try to like develop like, you know, a system that we're still working on it through the loyalty program so we can actually anticipate their needs. I think actually Tommy Hilfiger just launched in like US something now that you walk in front of the store and then automatically you scan, your face is scanned and they show you pictures, they put clothing, yes, from what's already inside the store to entice you there. But if they have your profile, I think like that's the way to go, to be more to be something that you're really like interested, because we're all losing patience. We don't want to like search to 20 pages in Zalora or like other websites to see what will fit.
So it's always important to have a loyalty program. So with the loyalty program, you are able to identify the customer when they come in because they are already inside your ecosystem.
Yeah, and you wanted to, you want it to be offered to you what kind of you already like want. I'm a very impatient person, so if you're not offering what I want, you know, you lost me forever.
So you ask, how is it possible to identify a unique customer identity, right? Which I can empathize. It's already challenging enough for retailers as is, but with luxury actually adds another layer of complexity. Because can you imagine when someone purchases like maybe like 100,000 USD watch, then the one doing inquiry is someone, but he intends to purchase it as a gift for another person. Then he does the down payment, and then he delegates to his personal assistant to actually pick up the watch. And then how do we ensure that this guy is valid, it's an actual personal assistant to pick up this watch, and then this is being gifted to someone else, and later that gift receiver would return to the service with us and saying that, hey, I got this from here like a couple months ago. So currently we haven't seen a CRM that can capture this automatically, so I am proud to say that we are still people reliant. We are still relying on our client advisors to actually flag those relationships. And underneath our omnichannel CRM, we will record like each of these data. So we capture relationship, not just like a single person's patterns and behaviors, but who this person relates to. And I understand that this is a common practice in luxury as well, because like a colleague of mine in the luxury car industries, they even have like community for the drivers of the cars. Yeah. So just to give nuances how to capture that single customer identity, but in luxury context.
So as you can see from their case, technology alone is not enough. Sometimes you need the human, the staff, the human aspect to perfect the whole servicing route. Because at the end of the day, it's true. Sometimes a lot of the, like I do CRM for many years, sometimes you look at the your top customers, your top members, the person can spend 100,000, but it's true. Sometimes you look at their profile, they are just a PA helping their boss to buy things in your store. So they are not the actual consumer. They are just like someone helping the boss to purchase. So this is time that a lot of time is the retail staff that will flag out that, hey, this account number, this member, in fact, is not really the VIP. But then is how do we pick up and go and connect with the boss behind?
I mean, just to add to this, right? I think loyalty programs is the typical way, right? Like what we see in the market growing. The only thing, and me putting my shoes in the customer, the one part to it is that you end up having so many loyalty programs that you no longer remember which one you have, which one you don't, right? And I think the other part to it is, and going a bit further and leading this conversation is you can have loyalty program, but how do you use it? Like how do you get data out of it? And I think there was some discussion here earlier, right? How do you utilize data and how do you actually make that easier, right? Especially in e-commerce like Zalora, where we have so many products, so many SKUs, then an attention span is short, with what you were sharing, is it gets into then personalization, right? And then how can then you use that data from different sources to combine it and show the right product to the customer, right? In that case, which they are more likely to get interested in, right? In that case. So it's also going one step further in how do you utilize that data and make something out of it, right? Because if it's just for loyalty to unify the data, okay, that this customer bought this one on offline and this one online, that's about it, right? Yeah.
So as you can see, it's very challenging. So a lot of brands are in fact trying to navigate this so as to have a complete view of their customer, which is very critical today to really know your customers. So with that, I think we will take some questions. Any question that you want to ask our panelists?
I thought let me add to the questions since there's no other question.
Yes, great. Thank you.
My main question is about data privacy, especially when it comes to omni-channel, because in some countries now, when you go to make a purchase, they ask you for your mobile number, and then the same mobile number could be there when you bought a product online. And now these mobile numbers are being used to scam people. So how do brands and platforms manage this whole data privacy while trying to get to, find a common view of the customer, and that information can be misused not only by someone within the company, but also by third-party logistics providers who have a lot of knowledge and can gain the customer's confidence. Oh, this is your mobile, you just ordered this, and by the way, the order is cancelled, now give me your credit card number. I mean, how do you manage all these potential fraud and misuse of customer information that is going to become even more complex in the next few years, while trying to have a view of the customer and connect with the customer and, through omni-channel and so on? How do you take care of this risk?
Yeah, it's a very good question.
So thank you for the question. I think there's like two aspects of it, which the one online will be like easier to manage, right? Through just like taking like a lot of measure, like having the right cybersecurity and all of that. But you touch a very important point, that also when you give that information, and we encourage the people, especially in the store, in the brick and mortar, to have that personal relationship with you, to manage you. And this is not something that anybody is doing like in the industry. Through some of the luxury stores, actually, they give a company phone, and as soon as the person is terminated, they wipe that phone off. But like, for instance, in other countries, they use their personal phone. I myself use that for some of the relationships that I manage. So your phone number ends up with that person too, which for me, it also comes to another aspect that you touch on. When you have those like heavy clientelers, it's not just important to invest in the technology. The most important asset that you have is still your people. You want to make sure they stay with the company, they use that, doesn't expose its customers to like fraud, as well, but they continue to like build, like that relationship, which one, I would say it's like mostly addressed to the best way they could. The other one, it's very much depends on the character of the person that ends up like working for you, but it also becomes their like biggest leveraging point on the next job, because in luxury, I've only hired people, depends on how big their client book is, meaning how many relationships they can bring, so they can just plug in and play. Tomorrow you sold, something else yesterday, today you're selling this, go.
To add on to that, so at LUXEHOUZE, first we look at the regional, the country's regulations and ensure that we are compliant with that. So actually we are a Singaporean company, and in Singapore the regulation is very clear. Like there's PDPA, or the Personal Data Protection Act, that we have to comply line by line, and the government ensure that we do that at least like once a year, the reporting. And what it means is that usually when someone like sells their watches, we have to note their like national ID number, but we cannot take a photo of that, for example. Whereas in Indonesia, the regulation is a bit different. Like the custom is to actually have a scan of the national ID. So we implement a different standard for different geographies. And as for the omnichannel, currently we are doing all the technology development in-house, meaning that would minimize any leak to like external vendors. And as Marcella also mentioned, we do like regular audits of our staff, like who should have access to what. And every time someone is exiting the company, then we will also ensure that they have like no longer have any access to the company's data. So internal preventions and also frequent regulatory checkups that so far work for us.
I mean, on e-commerce, I think we heard most of you know the story of Kupang, yeah? So I think there's no shortcut, and it's a lot of hard work. And if there are not teams working on that continuously, and you will fall behind. And I think the point would be is that it's evolving, right? You put in controls, but there are ways to go around it. And the other part that you mentioned as well is the regulations are actually in our markets evolving quite a bit. So there's also a compliance aspect to that that's very truly important. Yeah.
So definitely, as you can see, is that there's also a lot of law to protect the customer. But even the company, even they have done their due diligence, there are always ways for hackers to hack into the system to get your personal details. So it's always a challenge how the retailer is going to protect together with their IT investment. So the point is that always give what you need to give and don't give too much. And for retailers, it's also that don't over-collect. You only collect really strictly what you need to fulfill your responsibility to the customer, and then whatever compromise that may or may not happen, at least you also have mitigate the risk lah. Okay, thank you very much. I think our time is very much up. So thank you for being here, and I would like to thank my panelists for giving such a good discussion on this topic. Please give them a round of applause.